topic with open source innovation in medicine and healthcare. And we're going to have a panel discussion for the next period of time about that. You already know our last two speakers, Al Edwards and Adrian Carter. Let me introduce you to the moderator of this program, Dr. Pablo Cironi. Since 2013, Dr. Cironi has shepherded the Center for Genome Regulation in Barcelona. He spearheaded their technology and business development office there. His role there is to nurture and harness the center's discovery and then bring them to market. He has 15 plus years of experience in drug discovery, molecular biology, synthetic biology, and biologics, as well as 7 or 8 years in managing technology transfer and commercialization. So he's had a rich and robust experience in driving, building, and harnessing new discoveries in drug formulation. So with that, I'm going to ask Pablo to introduce his panel members. This is interactive. Nobody gets to sleep after lunch here. We're going to hand you the mic if you're nodding off so you can ask a question or two.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, and I also have a laser, so I can use it if I see someone sleeping, okay? Okay, I'm going to introduce briefly the panels. Some of them you already know, but I think I will introduce them anyway, just in case someone missed their talk. Adrian Carter, you can say hi, he's there. Adrian Carter currently has the Department of Corporate Research Networking in Boehringer Ingelheim, in Germany, where he's responsible for guiding research policy and external relations, supporting global research leadership, facilitating strategic research initiatives, and directing external innovation approaches in early research. Then Aled Edwards, he also presented this morning, is the CEO of the Structured Genomics Consortium, a public-private partnership that generates open-source research tools to support drug discovery. He probably will enlighten us with new concepts on open innovation. Then also is Christian Tidona, sitting next to him. Christian is a serial biotech entrepreneur and managing director at the BioMed's Innovation Center and BioRN network in Heidelberg, Germany. The BioMed X Innovation Center is a new collaboration model at the interface between academia and industry. I will ask him, if he's giving a talk tomorrow, I will ask him very briefly to present this new kind of approach for partnership with academia and industry. Also, Johannes Boltze, sitting there. He's a full professor and head of the recently inaugurated Department of Medical Cell Technology at the Fraunhofer EMB. He oversees a complex research program covering the areas of stem cell technique in induction, cell and stem cell-based therapy, neuroprotective, restorative compounds, and assessment of medical devices for stroke treatment and diagnosis. And Dieter Paar, he's from Sanofi-Aventis. He's professor of internal medicine at the medical faculty of the, I don't know how to pronounce it, Rheinisch Friedrich Wilhelm University.
In Bonn.
In Bonn, yeah. Thanks. His teaching extends to internal medicine and clinical pharmacology, and since 2008, he's heading the medical department at Sanofi-Aventis, Germany, based in Frankfurt and Berlin. Then, last but not least, Monserrat Vendrell. She is the Director General of the Barcelona Institute of Science and Technology since October 2015. Previously, she was Managing Director of BioCAD and Barcelona Science Park. She was also Chair of the Council of European Bioregions. So, thank you for coming, for accepting the invitation. So I hope this is kind of an open discussion, so we're going to go first with the panel, but we expect to have enough time for the audience to ask. So the reason why there is this sign there coming and it's open is because for me, open innovation is sometimes like a door where you can open, but you don't really know what you can expect on the other side, right? So sometimes you can expect enthusiasm, and sometimes you can get the opposite. So one thing I want to mention, but I think they did it before me. They kind of introduced the concept of open innovation, which was supposed to be introduced by Henry Chesbrough This is kind of like friendly definition, which is open innovation is a more distributed, more participatory, more decentralized approach to innovation based on the observed fact that useful knowledge today is widely distributed and no company, no matter how capable or how big, could innovate effectively on its own. So this is a definition, but sometimes people could interpret this in different ways. So this could be different things from different people, and so the question is, okay, what's really open innovation? So first, to start with a discussion on how open innovation works and what means really is what is going to drive us. Sometimes, as I said, it drives enthusiasm, people open doors and say, let's engage in a collaboration or an open innovation program with pharmaceutical companies, for example. Sometimes what you get is the opposite. Sometimes people get somehow excited, but some other people don't get excited at all because there's different things that really cannot match together. So at the end of the day, this could be kind of a fun roller coaster trip, and unless everybody meets the same expectation, this is not going to work. So I think today we have a panel with a lot of experience that actually they could help us to understand better what is open innovation and how this could help us to bring new therapeutics or new treatments to the people. Okay, so with that, I would like to say that basically the idea of collaborative approaches at the end is just to bring new and better ideas. So with that, I would like to finish. They will change the slides, and I would like to ask to the panel. Maybe we can start with Johannes. What is for you your definition for open innovation?
I think you have introduced it pretty nicely already. Open innovation is kind of a space where good ideas can meet, bright people can meet to develop something together and make it even greater. Open space would, at least to my definition, also include some kind of security space where very good ideas emerging from single individuals or institutions may be protected, but at the same time being openly available, which I think is still a challenge to be solved.
So maybe you next to him.
When Henry Chesbrough coined the we attribute it to him, but if you remember the Google Ngram, it looked as if the phrase had been around before that. Open innovation for Henry Chesbrough was just a company opening up its internal R&D organisation to external ideas. That could be, and probably then it was intended in the form of bilateral tripartite collaborations, but everything was still closed within the confines of the confidential disclosure agreement. What we've seen over the past 10 years is our understanding of open innovation has changed, and we're realising the different facets of openness. We're getting to the point where the extreme end is the open science, and I think Al was talking a little bit about that, where actually you put everything outside and you don't patent it and everyone can use it. That is also a form of open innovation, but I'm sure that's not what Henry Chesbrough meant when he originally coined the expression.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to skip for a second, and I would like to. We will come back to you later. To Christian, actually. Maybe first you can very briefly discuss BioRN X, and then what will be your definition of open innovation?
Is this working? Yes. Let me start that way. Before you can actually explain what open innovation is, the question is what is innovation, or what is innovation potential? And one of my dear friends, Shaiva Karnam, who was the head of the Center for Entrepreneurial Learning in Cambridge, once said, you cannot make innovation. Innovation happens, and then he said in places like Cambridge it tends to happen more often than in other places. What does it mean? Innovation is not something politicians like to, and also heads of big companies and institutions, they would like to say, well, until the end of the year you have this innovation. This is not how it works. It's a sporadic process, it's unpredictable, and you can only increase the potential. And it took me basically 15 years to understand what the ingredients are. First one is local density of talent, so getting as many highly talented people in a room on a campus. Second, as important, is local diversity of talent, coming from as many different backgrounds as possible, and looking at the same problem from different perspectives. And the third one is a local ecosystem that is conducive to innovation, meaning that failure is okay, free flow of ideas, low administration. And this, by definition, is to me, innovation needs to be open, otherwise it doesn't happen. And BioMed, maybe we come to that, otherwise I talk for too long.
So, do you mind to share with the audience a bit of BioRN?
The BioMed model?
Yeah.
Okay, very shortly, it's Adrian already explained a little bit of it. It's a new innovation model at this interface between academia and industry, and it works that way. Very large companies like Boehringer Ingelheim, for example, give us very tough early research problems, and we post them worldwide at the best universities and research institutions, and invite especially postdoctoral scientists to apply online by providing a very original project proposal how to solve this particular problem. So it's crowdsourcing, global crowdsourcing. And usually we get between 300 and 600 such proposals from all around the world. And then together with the scientists of our pharma partner, we select the 15 best ones, 15 most promising ones. We fly them into Heidelberg for a 5-day boot camp, put a lot of pressure on them, mentorship, don't let them sleep for 4 nights, and help them to convert this collection of crazy ideas into something we would call a fully fledged project proposal. And then on the last day, they present in front of the jury. Adrian is part of the Boehringer Ingelheim jury. And then these guys sit there and say, well, why didn't we think about this, right? And then the winning team wins a 4-year research, up to 4-year research fellowship at my innovation center. So we move them with their families from wherever they come to Heidelberg. We get houses, visa, jobs for their spouses, kindergarten spots. We move them, and then they live and work in this open innovation center, which is a fully equipped cell and molecular biology lab for a 4-year fellowship.
Thank you. So I asked in particular, he's going to give a talk tomorrow, he's going to explain, but I think he has a quite interesting model, which, it's quite unique, and I think it's worth for the discussion later. Monse, maybe you can enlighten us with open innovation for you.
Okay, Christian talked about innovation, maybe I could talk about open.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you that innovation is about developing an ecosystem and being involved in clusters and science parks, as you have been. We know how relevant and how challenging it is to really get the right ingredients in your surrounding. But getting it to, and that helps innovation, but really achieving open innovation, I think this concept of open, it's not the right outcome of this situation, and you need to have the vectors aligned for these things to happen. And I think it has not been until really the pharma companies have seen the challenge they have ahead of them with all the ingredients, the challenging of the R&D efficiency, the challenging of the pricing, etc., etc. They have looked to become more efficient, because open innovation is about efficiency. That they have started to really feed this rich ecosystem, otherwise not already functioning as an open innovation ecosystem. I think we have to do this with scientists, because scientists, 10 years ago, open science was not there. Now they are more used to this, but still, scientific organization, and now that I'm involved in a science organization, you need to put the drivers there for scientists to assume responsibility, and I think that's another word. Open innovation is about being responsible, each of us, about the role we need to play in getting this first in human with shorter time and with less cost. We need to put the drivers as organization for scientists to really be part of this equation. Otherwise, there's still a path to follow.
Thank you. Peter.
I think now we know what open innovation is, so I will not answer this again. I would be a bit more, let's call it self-critical. I mean, why, if we are honest, why does pharmaceutical industry do this now? It's because we have experienced a dramatic innovation gap in the past years. And you have seen the figures of 2.6 billion for one development. And it's logical that you really now try to improve your outcome. And that's combining, and then it's logical again that you combine internal and external expertise, which can bring real synergy. I mean, target identification, disease understanding. That's not, I would say, our biggest expertise in pharmaceutical industry. Many people criticize us very often, but even all these people which criticize us heavily, they admit that we know, as pharmaceutical company, how to bring a drug to approval, how to bring it to a patient, to run phase 2 and 3. And so it's extremely logical to combine this internal and external expertise and to be more open and to be more synergistic. And at the end, hopefully, the patient is going to profit from this. And we learn about speed, really losing 2 years or so in the approval process because any intellectual property is not regulated. That's not good for the patient.
Thank you. So, Ale, I mean, you presented this morning the concept of open source, and you probably describe mostly in the drug discovery area, right? So in your examples, you have the research institutions, universities, and you have big pharma. There are some other companies also, probably middle-sized companies. In your opinion, I mean, how this open source concept or open innovation concept could help, or if it helps to grow or enrich the local ecosystem in terms of startup creation. For example, here there's, I think, one leg that might be missing, which is policymakers, politicians, right? And constantly they keep asking and putting some pressure on research institutions now because of lack of funding, that actually they have to generate income by either license their results or to creating a startup. So maybe you can help us also understand how all this could fit together.
So, I don't know. But it's useful to start with the evidence, right? So, for me, the purpose of open science, whatever you want to call it, is to get a product faster, and that's the outcome. So it's not being open for the sake of being open, it's with a direct purpose to achieve an objective. Too much open innovation has no objective. The objective is to be open, which is dumb. In terms of the policymakers, they have a very difficult time, because if you heard the bit about clusters, the bit about this, there's actually no evidence that we believe it. And evidence-based policy is incredibly difficult in this fast-moving field. When we treat scientists as scientists, we don't treat policy as a scientific endeavor. And so it'd be really nice if we could generate different models of science and drug discovery or innovation in any of the sectors of the economy, and actually test the idea of that are clusters more efficient? Does open sharing data at the beginning, is it more efficient? It's still a hypothesis that open is better. So for me, I like to see the world in a whole bunch of experiments in how we do science and make products. Open is one of the experiments. I believe it should work, but I do believe we should actually take an unbiased view and set up global experiments to ask whether it does work or does not, because too much of our policy is not based on evidence. And so when you ask me questions how to create startups, they will happen. If they look at the evidence, half of the companies that start up from universities do so without a patent. So obviously, if you look at how successful our tech transfer offices are in terms of generating revenue, Canada in 2010 spent $55 million on our tech transfer offices over the whole country, and the revenue into the universities was $57 million. A net of $2 million on a probably $10 to $15 billion R&D. That ROI sucks. And that's not counting all the lost opportunities, the time delays. And so when you speak about policy, I think you got to factor all that into account. And my hypothesis, we don't know enough yet to make a good policy, so we should keep doing proper experiments in innovation, whatever that means.
Thank you. So then, for you, Christian, that within your model, I mean, I understand that there's all private funding, right? So, in your opinion, that gives you some freedom, right? Because at the end, you don't depend on policymakers or politicians what you should do. So, but in the case that this is something that you have thought already, or is something, not to involve public funding, or is something that just...
It evolved a little bit. I personally believe in the fact that startups should only be made if they're economically viable, and public funding in times distorts the situation a little bit in creating incubators full of zombies that are more dead than alive. I believe in good concepts and critical mass. But the point is, the difficult part about my innovation center was, I mean, you have to imagine all those groups that are actually sponsored by competing pharmaceutical companies. So we have, besides Ingelheim, we have Roche, we have AbbVie, we have Johnson & Johnson, we have Merck in Darmstadt, and there is no what. So everyone is a fellow, is an employee of BioMed, and the group leaders among themselves decide once per week who of the postdocs presents his or her work in front of everyone. And there is an exercise at the end that everybody tries to help how to improve the next steps in this particular project. So there is an absolute gray zone, which is a nightmare for business developers and lawyers at companies. And I think that was the biggest hurdle to show that actually, of course, if you sponsor a team, you will lose IP through diffusion. But through the same diffusion, you will get IP from 10 teams that are sponsored by your competitors, so you win always. Right? And this is very difficult to formulate in a collaboration agreement. That was the major challenge.
So I have one experience. And this is a question for Adrian. I mean, with pharma company, big pharma, right? So I said, well, let's engage in a drug discovery program. And so we put the knowledge on some new mechanism, new targets, and I said, well, we will do the screening, right? And so okay, so we should share our knowledge, know-how to get the best of the project. Sure. At some point, pharma company said, well, we will find some hits. Usually, you get a bunch of them. We will share with you the 10, the 11, 12 hits. We will not tell you where the first 10 hits. So, in terms of the science, I mean, you could say, well, I mean, if these hits really work and help the scientists to understand a bit more the biology, that should be enough, right? But in a matter of trust, right? And if you think about being open really to innovation, what's someone like you coming from big pharma? It wasn't with your company. By the way, but what do you think about it? What would be your reaction?
So I'm not going to try and apologise if there are black sheep in the way they look upon intellectual property rights, but maybe just give you two takes on two different aspects of it. One, I presented to you today an example of us providing a chemical probe to the outside world. That makes it sound easy within your own organisation. I can tell you it's not. There are still many people who are fixed into the classical model. I don't tell anybody what target I'm working on. I don't tell them what structures I'm working on because I can do it better. So I think there's a change process which needs to be initiated within your own organisation. The other one is it relates to how you work together with other organisations. And I've seen bilateral collaborations struggle if you try to put too many speed bumps or restrictions into the collaboration itself. You don't want to have a collaboration in which scientists from different organisations are concerned what they can say and what they can't say because they're giving away intellectual property rights. What you really need to do is have an area where you're able to create something together and then work out how you're going to divide it afterwards. So that, again, it's the classic example for me is when you see it very often in US agreements. Ownership following inventorship. What does that mean? You've probably got scientists that are careful. Well, do I say what the patent development is or not? Because if I do, I get my name on the patent, and if you get the name on the patent, then it defines the ownership of the patent. Well, really, you should have those sort of things which you divide up the spoils of that collaborative endeavour according to how the profits can be reaped from it. So it's for me, you have to get, and what I like about the open innovation, the open source model, is it's free, and therefore big danger is encumberment, that you're getting blocked from doing, and you need to get those rules straight from the start. And that will avoid such discussions that you just recounted a few moments ago.
Thank you. So, Dieter, in your opinion, I mean, you can, coming from medical affairs, right? I mean, we always talk about drug discovery programs and early stage program. I mean, have you seen or in your experience, you have experienced any type of open innovation collaboration at the level of clinical trials or so on?
Yes, I mean, if you look into the literature, read phase 3 studies, I mean, you have no phase 3 study which is only run by a pharmaceutical company. It's run by hospital, by physicians, so this is daily doing. But this morning we heard about Google, and this reminded me that also Sanofi, not only Novartis, also Sanofi started, our colleagues from Paris started last year a collaboration with Google, and I mean this is a very logical way to do, because we can really say, I would say again, it's combining expertise. I think that Sanofi has really some expertise and good products for treating diabetes, and Google has, as we have seen, deep understanding of data processing, data collection, sharing, and all this. And what a type 1 diabetic patient who has best insulin and he or she does not know her blood sugar, this means nothing. So you have to combine it. And in type 2, the escalation, type 2 diabetes, it starts with diet and exercise. And then the physician has to make a choice to increase treatment from tablets to insulin or the next GLP agonist. And why not using the data which can be measured in a patient to make this treatment pathway decision? And this is exactly the way how Sanofi and or the topic where Sanofi and Google try to work together in the interest of the patient to make treatment easier and decisions easier.
Thank you. So this the previous talk, I mean, we were talking about IP, right, or not to have IP at all, right? And so I think it would depend on the case, it would depend on the project, whether it's important or not, right? But open innovation somehow implies to collaborate openly with someone else, where you share know-how. You might share IP or not. If you don't create on that, you don't create any new IP. But companies, you know, also measure or they need to create a new IP in order to protect their molecules and to go to market. Research institutions also need to create IP many times, because it's a way that if you have an asset that you can transfer to another company and you can bring money to the institution. And sometimes it seems that it could be contradictory to generate IP, which sometimes is being interpreted as building fence, right, barriers. It's actually a negative right, it's not a positive right, it's just to block someone to do something with your invention. And on the other hand, we're talking about open innovation. So would you like to comment on that?
I would like to comment on that. So, as you may know, with Fraunhofer, a large part of our scientific business is to collaborate with small and medium-sized companies, actually, and helps them to develop any further. And in the federal states in Germany, usually there are programs being set on tracks where there can be public support for that kind of collaboration, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises. We heard about it, might have a critical notion about what the efficacy may be, but at the first hand it's a benefit for the companies to start. And we once in a while collaborated with two companies at a time. One was developing a diagnostic device and the other was developing a treatment device for exactly the same disease. So we had the idea, they were all testing that in one of our models. Let's do something together, because whoever sat in a very productive lab meeting knows how great open science can be. And they also have their separated patents, and we invited them for kind of a joint venture. There was even a benefit from the federal state at the time, that if you have two companies merging together on a project, they will get a financial benefit out of it. And guess what happened? Nothing. So those people were so hesitating sharing the idea to each other, because they thought, okay, that is the missing link to clinical application, what may be on the other side. It was the same notion on both sides. And then we were looking who has the more potent investors, who could take over. That was a little bit disappointing to me, because we thought we can do something together and something really great. We can even think of emerging joint IP out of that micro open innovation cosmos. But I think if we want to make it really successful, first we have to have a mind shift, actually, change of mind with some people or some institutions, and that may be achieved by creating kind of a protective atmosphere, actually, so that something which is developed within that particular space may remain there for a while.
Christian, I think you have with your model, and maybe that's not a problem, right? Or is it?
But the point is, I think we're still not at the point where open innovation is very well defined. Let me come from that side. What open innovation is not, and this is at the basis of our model as well, it's personal silos. Individuals who might be high performers in their field, but who don't share, because if they share, then they have to share their bonus, which they get at the end of the year. They have to share the royalties they get if they are on a patent, so that rather not sharing and be the smallest fish basically in a very small pond. The trick is actually to convert these little silos into big sandboxes that have sufficient critical mass and diversity. Within these sandboxes, it might still be some sort of a silo when it comes to the generation of IP, but at least people are sharing. And this is what we're doing at BioMed when we select people. You heard that we don't let them sleep for 4 nights. And the day before the last day, and these are always 5 teams, headed by 5 group leader candidates who are competing about budgets of 3 to 4 million euros. So it's not peanuts. And the day before the last day is called dry run. Everybody presents in front of everybody the clever ideas and presentations they have generated through the last 3 nights. And then there is 15 minutes where everybody else in the audience actually asks questions that might come from the jury the next day to help them. They can write them down. And the next 15 minutes, if it was my presentation, scientifically, the way it's presented, the way it's structured, how would you do it differently or better? And we tell them in the morning of this day, we're watching you. We are selecting people that energize their environment. Right? You are all outstanding scientists, but we are going to pick not the brightest, but the one who puts the most energy into his or her environment. And I think this needs to be done also in large organizations and universities to get away from the silo mentality. If I share somebody, I have to share the honor of publishing first or being on a patent. And this is the wrong incentive.
So I think we can open to the public if people
I think one more comment.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if this is relevant, but often these panel discussions are so non-exemplar that you think it's all in theory. So let me give you 3 examples of 3 companies, 4 examples. One company that I founded, it was based on a technology that we didn't use, but at the time we could raise money for anything. So we raised quite a bit of money, in-licensed an early compound from Glaxo, developed it, got to phase 2 and sold it. The IP, the patented stuff, was developed maybe 6 years into the company. The first stuff, so the idea of the patent that founds the company is what you sell. It almost never happens, as you guys know. Okay, you use the patent as a chit to get a lot of money, and then you pivot and do what the market says. That's one example where, in that instance, it wasn't open. There's another instance, and we invented a machine for the lab that made something go faster, and we thought, let's experiment. We put the drawings online, much like Pat Brown when he did his microwave first, put the drawings online. And as we found out, nobody wants to build a machine themselves. It's like putting a refrigerator drawing online. You don't go out and build one. Yeah, you want a company to build it for you. So in that instance, we had to create a company to market the original machine, and it invented and made improvements, and it's selling, and it's got employees. 10 years later, it's still growing. Okay, so that's another form of attempted open that didn't work. There's another example where this one happens to be mostly in my wife's lab, where they were working on, with a company, a direct sort of collaborative where they could publish anything they want, microorganisms that could eat pollution in the soil. And that company was created, another company with no foundational IP except for the know-how. And for 10 years, that collaboration has been open between the students, go back and forth, much like your model, I think. The students go back and forth, there's no patents or anything, and that company's growing and growing all over the world, right? But that was a very open collaboration with no patents, and they publish everything and they share their data with everybody. In the SGC model, which is not really innovation, it's more research, that's 8 companies, each put in 5 million euros, and the public puts in another 100 million, and we just do science and share it. And in that instance, much like yours, the scientists is seen by everybody. We're not worrying about is it patentable or not, because by rule, we just don't patent anything. That makes it a lot easier because there's no what-ifs. So those are 4 examples of 3 ongoing businesses that were made it without a patent, and then one where we explicitly don't patent and do a hell of a lot of research funded mostly by large pharma. It's a lot of fun. You don't have to worry about all that lawyer stuff.
Anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I asked my Frankfurt colleague who is running this corporation, this diabetes research corporation with Charité. There is a common lab, and what he just wrote down is for him that this collaboration can be successful. He always says it's the how which matters. So it's really common project teams from the beginning. It's a common project identity, common visions, and this openness and confidence really from the start. It's really working in the same lab, not working only in the Sanofi lab in Frankfurt, meeting every 2 weeks with the colleagues from the Charité. So it's really one laboratory which they have opened, and this is for him the key. That this gets successful, that it's really from the first day the same lab and the same version and on a daily basis.
Monserrat, do you want to go into that?
Just to add on what you're saying, this implies that we really need to know how we train people. And maybe I'm getting out of what we've been discussing here, but just to add another axis to this is we're talking, like, as you were saying, maybe on theoretical, but how do you get the people who know how to do this, and how do we train them with the right skills to talk different languages, to understand different needs, and this is something the same way we need to see how we train our PhDs, that they need to have all these skills to be able to be successful in this kind of environment that is completely different from the one we lived when we were, I say we because I'm a former scientist, I mean in the labs, right? And just to share with you some experiences, and it will be explained more tomorrow by Juan Fernandez, who's there, about the Design Health Barcelona program. It has to do with what we're talking here. It's a program where we train teams from different origins, from science, business backgrounds, engineering backgrounds. We train them on skills, on science, and on business, and we put them in a hospital environment to detect needs. And out of these needs might come out potential devices, potential services, etc. What we're seeing is that there's an interest by pharma companies, and actually Sanofi is contributing to the program, either through sending their people to participate in this 10-month program, to be able to expose themselves to the attitude to detect needs in a hospital and how to translate this into ideas, and also to have access to this potential bunch of list of needs analyzed that can be potential concepts that for them might be useful for their beyond the pill strategies, right? So I think we need to put this into the context of not just how we collaborate, not just the IP, it's just how we physically do this, who does this, and how we do this. And this is not always obvious.
Okay. So one question for all of you. It's what is, you already mentioned some, it's the key ingredients for make this happen, and the ingredients that definitely you don't want to have on the soup, because otherwise it won't happen.
I would say the key ingredients would be enthusiasm and drive, and one thing that could be blocking is fear.
I think the key ingredient is to make sure that science is driving what you're doing and not discussions about splitting up IP. Get that clear, get a framework for the scientists to work together in the most constructive way.
I think from the policy point of view, to set clear expectations and as quantifiable as you can at the beginning to know if you were successful or not. Too much emphasis is on the process and not on the outcome, and we're very bad at that, especially in universities.
I've already said what the ingredient is, what doesn't work, which is silos. If someone, a postdoc at BioMed would come up with the idea of not sharing data or not sharing instruments, that would be my reason to remove him or her immediately from the ecosystem. But what is necessary is, and we haven't touched on that up to now, which is in our core mantra. This is a quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." And it's important that creative minds have the freedom and have the opportunity to sit together, to work together, to eat together, to go on retreats together, to play together. And the best ideas, to my experience, they do not come in the lab. They come while eating, jumping around, climbing, running, I don't know. But that's important, that we have fun while being creative.
Well, Albert Einstein also said that you cannot solve a problem with the same mentality of those who created the problem. And I think open innovation is about that. So continuing on what you said, it's about building trust and finding this comfort zone or win-win space where everyone knows the rules precisely to then be completely relaxed and open to collaborate.
So do you think we have here in front of us a good opportunity? I mean, we have seen this model for already the one we are actually applying for a long time enough. And do you think there's an opportunity now, this new type of institute at the BIH we heard yesterday and this morning, and maybe with the BIST Institute in Barcelona now, that could bring, I mean, because they're new, you can really build something different, right?
We shared yesterday at the Bienal, the challenges that are inherent to this kind of endeavors, right? Merging organizations where the first thing people feel is like, I'm losing my comfort zone, I'm losing my space, my kingdom, right? If we are able to succeed with these new initiatives of merging institutions with a common goal, this will certainly contribute to what we're talking today, because it's about, getting out of your comfort space and seeing how you can add your value proposition to the one next door for a common goal. And this is what open innovation is. And certainly at the level of development or business development, not to use the word tech transfer, or finding the space to collaborate about what's going on inside these institutes, you're increasing completely the point of view, because they come from different backgrounds, the potential pipeline of projects. So that gives you a more detached space and also more comfortable space for open innovation to happen.
So now, I mean, is there any question on the audience you want to make to the panel? I will start with the laser.
Thanks to all the panelists. I know a couple of you. It's interesting to dialogue on open innovation, two words that get discussed a lot at these sorts of things. To Dieter and Sanofi, open innovation, collaborating with Google for large data sets around type 1, type 2 diabetes, 300 million type 2 diabetes patients in the world. Any concerns about that open collaboration getting closed as Google becomes a potential competitor, or is that down the road?
That's a very good question, because to be honest, I personally do not know where it's going to end. And if you talk to people who are much closer to this as I am myself, because it's steered from colleagues in Paris, they exactly ask this question, and it may end up that it may even risk our business model as a pharmaceutical company, because many of the ingredients, the medicaments are now generic, they are easy to produce, and this is for sure a question which can be asked. But I still believe that it's worth to go this way, because I personally think, and this is probably my physician background, it's worse for the patients. It's a disaster how you still see diabetic patients, and I still see some diabetic patients, how badly they are treated, And I think when it's a real improvement, then there is room for everyone, even if it's at the end of the day a probably somewhat different business model for Sanofi or Pfizer or all the other companies. I personally would say, okay, it might be a risk, but openness is also probably the ability to take this risk, to answer it very honest.
Thanks.
I wanted to turn the topic around. We talked about earlier about how, for example, in the BioMed program, how you take problems from industry and you have academics solve them for them. So it's a great business model. Hopefully it'll yield some of the things that you're thinking about. But could you entertain the flip of that, which would be is how do you actually ask academics what their problems are, for which you then try to figure out solutions in the same way. Because I think they are, you can be in the medical profession, you can start with anywhere you'd like, but you could say, okay, I want to do it from finding ways to get rid of environmental pollutants, or I could do it from a medical perspective since we're in a medical thing. Can you actually comment about whether that's feasible or whether the model that you've developed can be used for such a program?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. In the end, anyone can tap into this crowdsourcing global resource of brain power. It's published how it works. There's lots of people out there who know how to do it. Of course, I could imagine universities being my customer. I'm not sure whether there is enough money actually to sponsor these kinds of projects, and there is sufficient, let's say, awareness of the fact that we could do something that they can't. But it's quite interesting. If you look at the profile of people that are applying at BioMed, it's what I call it's the third type of researcher. It's not the typical academic researcher that is curiosity driven but wants to become a professor. The industry-driven researcher who's very much project-focused and product-focused and not so much around publications. But there is people who like curiosity-driven research but at the same time want to see purpose in their life. Many of them are coming to us, 10, 15 top publications, but they say nothing of this is ever going to end up for the benefit of a patient. So I need meaning. And I think we can be this intermediate. But I have no clue whether a university would ever be.
So I'd like to expand that because I would like to bring it to the industry side, because I kind of see the problem also that we need to engage as academia, industry to do our problems, solve our problems for us. I mean, we are trying to come up with solutions. We have disease indications, we know what we want, but we don't have those expertise, and it's very difficult at the moment to attract them at all. It's too risky, we're not interested. But you would need a different business model that would incentivize both sides. Maybe you can comment on that from, say, Boehringer's perspective.
So I appreciate the challenge, and I think the way it works in this particular way is because there is a partner who is in industry prepared to pose the challenge, evaluate the responses, which takes a lot of effort, and then also pay the reward or fund the researchers to work together. The advantage for us is we're completely agnostic. We don't care where the solution comes from, what nationality, gender, or whatever the person is involved with in doing that. The main thing is we get the problem solved. But then we reward it, we're able to fund it. Now, for it to work in the other way, you will have to have an agnostic research organiser, and I'm sorry, I don't think they are, because universities or academic are focused very much on their particular institute, or a country is focused very much on their particular country. You have to break those barriers down. You also need someone who's prepared then to take that solution and potentially turn it into a product which can be monetized, because somehow you've got to get the reward on it. So the challenge for me is that the driver has to be able to take the solution on board and be able to develop that accordingly, and that's always going to be the struggle with, because the academia is not built to do that. I don't have an alternative solution.
Do you think private foundations, to following up on the question, private foundations could actually kind of help filling that gap there? There's some examples of private foundations, for example. You show one on your slide, I think a CDH, Huntington.
I think I'll open it and pass it on to Al, but I think what we've seen in the Structural Genomics Consortium is a willingness for private foundations to fund key aspects which they believe they can find a solution with in the open source approach. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation give the SGC money in the area of TB and malaria. Or you've got other disease foundations particularly interested in the disease which is driving their interest in finding solutions, but because it's an orphan disease, probably they're not seeing those solutions being developed elsewhere. Now, you want to add to that?
I think you're right. You should also ask how much of this open stuff we're talking today is unique to the pharma sector. But it is a weird part of the economy, right? Where the amount you charge isn't related to the R&D costs. Government protects the market. There's a hell of a lot of, if you go to the engineering side of campus, the kinds of relationships that they have with corporations are a lot different. I presume in Fraunhofer in the engineering side. There's much more students going to companies. It's incredible the difference in the different parts of our, I would say, university or academic system. So a lot of the problems we're talking about today is pretty unique to the pharma sector and how we've evolved it. It doesn't have to be that way, but how we've let it evolve. And certainly the change to quarterly earnings reports in the 80s just blew up how university, there were Bell Labs, DuPont Internal Labs, all because of that change in Wall Street, which is kind of distressing to the world.
So we were talking about Google this morning. Somebody fears their power and they may take over sometime. We were talking with Alan, let's create a parallel world. We are too small to fight the existing rules, and let's do something. Okay, open innovation is a solution, definitely. But you distinctive panelists, you can, let's say, gather together and you can rewrite the rules of the market. Of course, you're a small sample, but why does the pharma industry not gather together to rewrite the rules of the market today? I mean, they still have power, and they can do that. What is your opinion?
No, I personally believe that in a way we are currently doing this. I mean, I left academia 15 years ago, and when I joined a big pharmaceutical company, I was really shocked by this totally missing openness. And what I see, at least in our company, in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, is really a change. So I'm not sure whether we are not probably, it's happening. The problem, of course, is that if we are honest, at least from my company, I can say we have not yet seen the first product. So the proof is still out. But what I've seen is really in our company much more openness and much more collaboration. And I mentioned it. I personally think it's an honest cooperation, at least with academia. And when I talk to the academic persons who are part of this collaboration, I quite often hear a sentence like, "Oh, now as we have worked with your R&D colleagues for 2 years, we are starting to get a bit more trust in this bloody pharmaceutical industry because we see you also do research." So I'm a bit more optimistic. Probably it starts now, but the success is still out.
I have a different view on that. Can I quickly comment on that as well? We're at the age of Moore's Law. We saw this the presentation this morning. And this means that even if you're excellent and you stay where you are, in 2 years you're only half as good as compared to everybody else. And I think it's a big challenge for those large pharma companies to take on this challenge. Look at the automotive industry. It's being disrupted by a little guy that brought an electrical car to the market 6 years ago. Everybody was laughing, and now this guy sold 500,000 cars of a car that is going to be developed in a couple of months. It's very difficult for such a large organization to completely change their culture and adapt and reinvent themselves, and there will be smaller players that actually scare the hell out of them and that have a good chance of really disrupting the market. So if I was a big pharma company, I would do from morning till night nothing else than reinventing myself and try to come up with new models.
I disagree. I don't think any component of the ecosystem can change. I mean, it's not as if pharma can make independent of the government regulators who reward them, in front of the research system that provides the early R&D. The ecosystems resist change. The fundamental problem that has not changed is we don't know enough science. It's hard to make a medicine. It costs a lot of money the way we do it. And we keep things secret, which obviously makes it cost even more money. So that's one problem. Shifting it from pharma to little companies, university, the fundamentals don't change. It's going to be just as unsuccessful everywhere. So that's number one. Number two, no component of the system can change it independently of the others. So one sector getting together, we're going to change, doesn't matter, it'll resist. So unfortunately, that's not true. I think what will change because the economics that, continue going. I think we're going to change as society considers medicine as much a human right as a product. We think of it as a product now. I think it's going to be a little bit more balanced. I think the public sector is going to have to take a bigger involvement in taking the risks that are drug discovery, letting the corporate sector take the risk, which we all condone, right? We're the shareholders of Sanofi. I don't say Sanofi, make less profit. I don't go to their shareholders meeting demanding they make less profit, right? And so I think it's so complicated that we can't point to one person and say, you change it. This is my argument for we need a parallel universe because these forces cannot be changed, in my opinion.
There's also one of the nice things about working in open innovation partnerships, the public-private partnerships, is that why don't pharma companies sit together and start to change things? Well, yes, the model is what it is, and it takes several different players to change things, and that's going to be extremely difficult. But you have to always remember competition law. You can't sit down and start talking about and how you reorganise the market. No, you go to prison for that. That's not right. But what you can do in an open environment around is talk science. And you can talk, and for me, the challenge is, so the 2.6 billion number that I presented today is probably an underestimate. I'm sure it is. Most of those costs are being incurred in the late clinical stages because the clinical obligations are getting greater. That's the regulatory problem. But also that includes failures. We're failing to understand, we're failing to get the efficacy, which is all indicative to me is that we don't understand enough about what I call the Holy Trinity. How do I bring the drug, the concept they're working out, the protein and the disease together? Okay, because once I've understood that, I've got a better chance of bringing the drug to market. The only way we can understand with the complexity is by able to work together. However, and I think this is Al's point, we should be driven by numbers. You know what biologic science, pharma, is terrible, is that we don't let our policy be driven by numbers. If you go and look at economic policy, you see the numbers, they try to work out how to perturb the system, what's happening. Scientists just say, give me more money and we'll solve it. Well, the distribution that Al shows you is they're probably not going to, because there's not going to be the source of the targets. The genetics is telling us where the interesting genetic targets are. We just don't understand it enough. It's so complex, we're going to need new ways of approaching it.
I think it's time for one more question. Okay, otherwise, let's give a round of applause to the panelists.